Well, thank you guys for joining tonight. As most of you know, there is a crazy shortage of masks. And what we're trying to do is help out physicians, nurses, everybody that is out there just every day trying to help everyone. So what we're trying to do is not replace the N95 masks, but what we are trying to do is give people some sort of coverage instead of wearing a bandana or nothing at all. So thank you guys, everyone, for being here. We are gonna help so many people tonight. And I just think this is such a great way for us to come together. And even though we're not in the same room, hey everybody, even though we're not all in the same room, and we are definitely learning in a new way when it comes to sewing, but I'm just happy that we can all come together and be here and learn this and also just start donating. So a couple of things before we start. I just want to talk about distribution. So we've had a ton of questions. How are we going to get these out? What are we going to do with this? And we have so many people involved now that this is hopefully going to go very smoothly. So the first thing is we have a list on our website with contact names and phone numbers and emails of people that are in need. And if you're joining us tonight and you need masks, please email us so we can add you to that list. We're trying to help as many people as we can. So with that said, there's also a link in my story today that has another link of tons and tons of places all over the world that need masks. You can just put in the city that you're looking for, and it will also have a contact name. So I'm going to be posting that on our website after the class, and then it's also going to be running in my story. So that's how we're going to do distribution. In addition, Lyft is helping do pickups and also drop-offs with certain hospitals. So that's going to be kind of our distribution plan so that we are practicing social distancing and we're not going out and trying to meet with people and do an exchange. So we do have those things set up. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So bear with me. I'm at my apartment in Brooklyn, and this is definitely not the normal studio that we have. So things might be a little shaky, but we're just trying to learn this skill. So bear with me, guys. All right, so let's talk about the supplies that we're going to need today. So I have a basic cotton with a polka dot print. This is 100% cotton, and what I've done is I pre-washed it before we had our class tonight. If you haven't washed your fabric yet, you can always do that like after you make these, but what we're trying to do is avoid shrinkage. So if you cut these out at 6x9, more than likely you're going to have about ½ an inch of shrinkage, and that will work for a child. So if you've already cut out and you haven't washed, don't worry, it's not going to be a deal breaker, but you do want to wash the fabric ahead of time if it is 100% cotton so that the masks don't shrink when they are sterilized. So what we're going to go ahead and do is there's a couple of different options. You can use 100% cotton for both layers. This is a little one that I made the other day, or you can do cotton on one side and flannel on the other. I prefer the flannel just because I feel like it's a little thicker, but like I said, either one is fine. For this demonstration, I'm going to be doing red flannel and 100% cotton polka dot material. A couple of other suggestions if you're at home, you can use a tea cloth. These are actually supposed to be about 60% when it comes to coverage. So these are really nice, and you can just cut one of these and double it. And so that would be really nice to use if you don't have fabric. The other thing you can use is a t-shirt. And this is also not as great as the 100% cotton, but it will still work. So if you're at home and you're using recycled materials, those are fine as well. All right, so let's get started. So I'm using 1 yard of fabric, which will cut about 10 to 15 masks, depending on how I lay it out. I think I've been getting about 10 masks out of a yard. All right. The other thing before we get going, you'll need is elastic. We've had a lot of chat about this too. This is a 1/4 inch wide elastic. You can use a 1/4 inch or you can use an 1/8 of an inch. So either one is fine. If you have a thicker elastic at home, let's say it's 1 inch wide, you can just cut that in half, or you can cut it in quarters, and that's fine as well. Elastic is usually pretty durable even when you do cut it. So this is the elastic we'll be using. We've also had some questions through our feed about, can we use fabric ties instead? And that's totally fine. We have some patterns on our website for other variations of this. All right, so I'm just gonna take the selvage edge. If you do not know what a selvage edge is, that is the edge where the fabric starts. That's when it's produced at a mill. And you can usually see like a little ribbon, or it's just, there's no fraying on the edge. So I'm looking for that first. I'm gonna go ahead and line up the edges. And the reason why I'm using the selvage edge is because it's the straight edge. You won't have to worry about trying to get an even cut if you do have a selvage edge. You can just use that to start with. If you don't, you do need to make an edge that is straight. All right, and then I'm just going to go ahead and even out the fabric. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna focus on this area right here, and I'm going to just take a ruler, and the first thing I'm gonna be marking is from the selvage edge, I'm gonna be marking 6 inches. I like to use tailor's chalk when I'm marking just because it's easy to, it comes off easily, and it's also very easy to see. So if you're gonna be making lots of masks, which I hope most of you are, you can go ahead and just mark it all the way along the selvage edge. All right, and then from this side, what you can do is actually rip the fabric to create a straight edge. So you can just put a little cut, and then when you rip the fabric, it gives you a straight edge. It goes right on the grain. This sound can either be very scary or kind of satisfying. All right, there we go. Okay. So now you just want to make sure that those edges are lined up, and also your selvage edge, so that you don't have to recut these edges. Okay. Mine's not cooperating, so if that's the case, you can just take your ruler and put in a line at like 1 inch or ½ inch to be a straight edge. All right. Okay, so now I'm gonna measure over 9 inches from the edge. All right, and then you can just connect your lines. And then I like to add a couple of pins just to secure everything in place so that it doesn't move around. Has anyone already started making these? How many have you made so far, guys? I'm trying to keep up with some of your comments, but there's so many on here. Let's see. I have thicker elastic. Can I cut it? Yes, you can definitely cut it into thinner strips. That totally works. All right, so now I have 2 pieces for the mask, and these are both 6 by 9. Okay. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and start cutting some of the elastic. Yes, I see a comment about braided elastic. I think that will work. Oh, awesome, you made 6 yesterday, cool. My hope is that everybody makes at least 10. Do you guys think that you can all try to make 10 of these? I know some people have been getting kits from me in Brooklyn, and the majority of those kits have been 10. Oh my gosh, 100, Palm Blue. That's amazing, thank you. Yes, there are patterns for cloth so that you can just make straps for the neck, or sorry, for the head as well. All right, so next step. All right, so now we're gonna move into threading a machine. I know a lot of you that are tuning in tonight might not be sewing all the time, which I really appreciate that you're joining to learn. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to do a really quick threading of the machine. And then you guys can either follow us on our IGTV, we have a threading machine video already up, or you can go to our YouTube and we have that as well there. So if you get stuck, just go ahead and you can jump off, go watch that, and then come back to us. All right, here we go. All right, so I am going to be using a Janome Sewist 500, and let me see if I can get a little bit more light on here. Great. All right, so to thread this machine, it's pretty simple. You're just going to pick the color of thread that you want. I'm gonna be using white today. The first thing we're gonna do is thread the bobbin. So to thread the bobbin, you're gonna put your thread on. Not sure if I can see this very well. You're gonna put your thread on the spool, and then you're going to put the spool pin cap on. And I'm just gonna go around, I'm actually gonna take it out of this so you can see. All right. So now I'm going to go around the bobbin tension, like that. And then you're going to take the thread and you're gonna go from underneath the edge of the bobbin top. So I'm going from under here, but through the top hole. It's really hard to do this while I'm using my phone, but I'm trying. All right, okay. There we go. Back on the stand. Okay. So you have your bobbin like this, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the thread and just put it through the top here. All right, then we're gonna pop it onto the bobbin winder. And you usually push over the winder like this, and then you're gonna pull out your hand wheel, or there might be an automatic click over that stops the needle from going up and down. All right, so now I'm just going to press on my pedal, and this is going to start to wind. And you want to make sure that you keep your thread up high so it doesn't break off or get stuck in there. And you're just going to clip off the extra thread. Then you're going to push it back over, and we're going to go ahead and take the bobbin off and set that aside. All right, so the next couple of steps, I'm just going to thread this pretty quickly. And like I said, if you want to have a little bit more of a tutorial on how to thread your machine, you can just take a look on our YouTube channel or on our Instagram videos. All right. Yes, I have my husband trapped in the bedroom. I see you guys commenting on that. This is my production studio out here. All right, here we go. All right, so now that we have our machine threaded, you just want to make sure, one of the things that can be a little scary is if your machine is set to a setting that doesn't work with the presser foot, the needle could break. So what you want to do is just make sure your settings are set on a straight stitch and that it's not on a zigzag, and also that you have a foot that is your standard regular sewing foot. So my setting is A for a straight stitch, and you can see the little diagram up here of what that means. So A, my straight stitch, and then in between a 2 and a 3 for the length of the stitch. Okay. All right, so I already have a couple of kits cut out, so I'm going to use one of my kits, the flannel back that we talked about earlier. With the red material. Okay, so one thing I don't think I mentioned yet is that your elastic strips need to be 7 inches in length. So if they're not already cut, you can go ahead and cut those. The next thing is you don't need to finish your edges like normally when you're working on a project. What that means is you would usually create some sort of barrier on the edge to keep it from fraying, but we don't need to do that. So because we are going to be sewing a couple times around to secure it in place. So the first thing is you want to take the right side, meaning the fabric that has the print on it, and you're going to face that side to the right side of the other one. So if I was using 2 printed materials, that would mean I'd have my printed side up and I would be facing the other material facing the printed side. The reason for this is because we're going to be flipping it around and it will make it so that both sides of the fabric are on the right side. So before I go do that, we're just going to take one more step. And can everybody see me okay? Here, we'll lean this down just a tad more. Okay, so you're going to take your piece of elastic, you're going to line it up in the corner, and you can add a pin now if you'd like, just to hold that there, but you also could wait until you get the other fabric. Yes, you can use 2 cotton layers. The only reason I'm using flannel is just as preference, but it's totally fine to use 2 cottons. Most of the time when I do see these demonstrated, or any time I've seen this pattern, it is with 2 cottons, but I have read that the flannel works great too. Okay. So now I'm going to take, thank you, Chloe. Chloe is answering questions while I'm demonstrating. Chloe is the manager at the Sewing Center. So, hey, thank you for being here. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my elastic here. I'm gonna take the corner of the fabric and I'm actually gonna line it up with both edges and go ahead and put a pin in that. So it's nice and secure. Then I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to make sure that the elastic is not twisted, and I'm going to line that up with this edge here, and we're going to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you are getting it, so if you have to pull it out just a tad, that's okay, just to make sure that it is getting attached. All right. That's one side, and we're just going to do the same thing for the other side. It's no, you would want to use flannel. Flannel is definitely better than felt. I think felt's a little too heavy, and just the consistency of the fabric I think is not as durable. You do want to make sure that you're using something lightweight because we are going to be putting in a lot of tucks and it's a little harder. So yes, there is an option to put a filter inside. There are a couple of patterns that we are going to post for that. The reason that we're not doing that is just because there are a lot of places that don't maybe have the filter, or everybody that's working tonight, maybe they don't have one, and it's perfectly fine to do this without the filter. But if you wanted to leave something open, you would have a line through the middle, so this would be two different pieces that would overlap, almost like an envelope. But that is something that you could do. And it is okay to wash cotton from existing clothing. So if it is existing clothing, it's probably already been washed, so you don't need to run it through the wash again. Okay, so now I have both sides pinned, and my elastic is pinned here and here. All right. All right, so now we're gonna move into the next couple of steps. All right. Okay, so you're gonna just start by stitching at 1/4 of an inch. That means you're going to either line it up with the edge of the presser foot, which that's what I normally do, is just line it up right here with the edge of the metal piece. And then I'm going to go all the way around until the bottom. But at the bottom, I'm definitely going to leave open a small opening so that we can flip it around. So I'm gonna go ahead and try that now. We're also going to be using a straight stitch, and you definitely want to take your pins out before you go over them. Once again, this can be a little dangerous. If you do hit the pins, it could break and the needle could go flying. So if you are a beginner, wearing glasses would probably be a good idea. All right, the other thing is, if your fabric is not lining up properly, you can just add a couple other pins to kind of secure it in place. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. You're gonna start forward and back stitch. And then I'm just gonna go all the way to the edge. And I'm just stopping as I see the pins. All right, when I get here, I'm going to do what's called a pivot. So I am going to, sorry, it's a little bright, guys. I'm going to put the needle in the fabric like that. And so it's gonna secure the material. I'm going to lift up the presser foot, and I'm going to turn the material towards the front. I see you guys doing a lot of questions, and I'm trying to keep up, but I think Chloe's gonna be helping out. So maybe I'll get to you. If I miss your questions, I will DM you afterwards. All right. So after you pivot, you can just keep going. You want to make sure that your elastic is not getting caught in here. It's only the two corners of the elastic. If your fabric is starting to bunch a little bit, you can just let that release and just make sure that your elastic is still in place. I'm going to do my pivot again. All right, so now we're getting towards the bottom edge, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna leave open about 4 inches. So I'm gonna go forward about half the way, back stitch to secure that space. And then I'm going to lift up. I'm gonna go ahead and take my fabric out so you guys can see how much I've done so far. So I've stitched all the way around this corner and to the middle. So now I'm going to start stitching right about here. Okay, I'm doing another pivot. And then I'm going to just come all the way up here and back stitch. So now you probably have a lot of threads kind of hanging off. So now is a good time to trim all of those off. Yes, as a beginner, you should use more pins. Definitely. That would definitely be helpful, but you also don't want to use too many pins because it can make the fabric a little bit bumpy. Yes, tightly woven cotton. Waterproof is not a good idea just because of it holding the moisture. So you definitely want something that is considered breathable. Okay, so now we are this far. We have the outside all done, but we have a little opening here. So what you're gonna do is you're going to flip it to the right side. Okay, so this is what we have so far. All right, so you still have a little opening here. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that it is folded in. So you have like your little fold right here. So you're going to make sure that it's folded in, and you're going to just pin that edge first. Thank you, Chloe, by the way, and Chloe's mom, Ellie Bug Makes. Hi. Yeah, I wasn't expecting so many questions, but I'm so glad you, and hi Panda Trim, you're my neighbor. You're across the street in Midtown. All right, so now we have the entire edge pinned here, like that. And you should have both of your elastic straps on secured well. So one thing, hi Holly. So one thing that you want to do is make sure, go ahead and pull on your elastic straps and just make sure that they're not popping out. So I'm going to do that now. If they are, you can always go back and try to kind of stitch them down. But now we're going to be going around this a couple of times. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create our pleats before we start sewing this. So to create the pleats, or tucks, you could call them. And I'm just gonna show you what the tucks look like finished. Might be a little less confusing. So we have 3 tucks here. They're all going in the same direction. So that's one thing that's really important when you're making these, is that your tucks are all going in the same direction and that they're going in the same direction on both sides. This will help with the fit of the mask, and it'll make sure that it creates a little bit more of a barrier on the sides and across the front. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of show you, it might even be easier to see this way. I'm gonna show you how to pin those. So basically you're gonna use the right side of the material that you're on, and you wanna make sure that your fabric is pulled all the way out, so it's all the way to the edge. Sometimes your fabric can get stuck in there. So like that. And then I'm going to make my tucks going in this direction. So the first step would be, and you wanna make these small, so they should only be about like a quarter to half an inch. So here's my first tuck, and I'm just gonna go ahead and pin it to hold it in place. Now I'm gonna do one more tuck. All right, and then another tuck here. I made a mask for myself just when I have to go outside, and it actually, I felt like it did help. It definitely was better than wearing nothing. So if you are someone that is going to be, making these and then helping with distribution, please make yourself a mask as well, just to be extra safe, especially if we're gonna be, if anybody's gonna be going out, even just to the Uber, it's helpful. Okay, so now we're gonna do the same thing on the opposite side. So if everybody can see my tucks, so they're all going in the same direction. Now I'm going to go on the other side and try to do it in this, going in the same direction. So I'm starting with the top. Here's one. You also want to make sure that when you are doing the tucks that the edge is even. And the last one here. So I don't like the way that this turned out, so I'm just gonna redo it. I think this one's a little too large, so I'm just gonna make that one a little bit smaller, just so the distribution along the edge is even. All right, that's much better. Okay, so we have 3 tucks, 3 on this side, and just gonna double check that they're both going in the same direction, and they are. Mine are all going down. All right, so now we are gonna start sewing. And this is going to secure the tucks that we've made, and it's also going to secure, oop, I've got a pin hanging out. It's also going to secure the opening that we made. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way around. So I'm going to be using a straight stitch again, same exact stitch we used last time. Okay, so I'm gonna start on the edge with the tucks, and this can be a little bulky, so what you wanna try and do is go ahead and move it in just a tad. Like, you don't want it to be right at the edge of the presser foot, but it's helpful if you put it like to line up with the back of the presser foot here. Okay, so now I'm gonna start with a back stitch. And it looks like it was a little heavy there, so my machine made a noise to kind of stop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just use my hand wheel. So if you do notice it's a little too tight, you can just take, most machines have what's called a hand wheel, which is this, and you can manually sew by hand. So what I just did was go ahead and use that to put the needle in. Now I'm gonna back stitch. I also forgot to put my presser foot down, so make sure you guys are putting those down. All right, and I'm gonna take out the pins before I go over them. All right, and I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I'm gonna go ahead and use my hand wheel to put the needle down in the fabric and turn the fabric. So now this is the edge that's still open, so we're gonna be closing that. So now I'm gonna keep my presser foot right here. This is the edge of the presser foot lined up with the edge of the fabric. And I'm gonna go ahead and continue. And taking out my pins as I go. So we have 106 people right now, and that means we are making 106 masks. So that's pretty awesome. If you are just tuning in and you do not have a sewing machine, that's okay. We actually need people to cut fabric as well and prep the materials like I was showing earlier. That's something that you can really do to help. And if you do have supplies after this class, feel free to email us and we can have you drop it off. Or we can have one of the lifts pick up and drop off. All right, so now I'm going over, if your fabric gets stuck, sometimes it gets a little heavy. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pull it just a little bit to keep it going. All right, now I'm right at the edge. I'm gonna go ahead and turn here. And again, you wanna make sure that your fabric is pulled out to the edges. All right, there we go. And so now I'm putting the presser foot back down. And I'm just gonna go all the way around, lining it up with the edge of the presser foot. And back stitching at the end. All right, so before we take this out, we're actually gonna stitch it one more time. This is gonna create a reinforcing edge, which is gonna help keep it nice and tight and prevent things from coming in. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and turn, just keep going, and you're gonna just do one more round all the way around. You can go over the same stitch, or you can do right next to it, doesn't matter. The child mask is 5.5 by, sorry, it's 5 inches by 7.5 for kids mask. Make sure you go all the way around. And then you're going to back stitch when you get over the end. All right. Now you can go ahead and just cut off all of your threads. All right, so that is how you make the mask. However, I have a couple of extra things that we can add to this. So today, I've actually been testing out the masks for the past 2 days, and yes, they are approved. They're CDC compliant, meaning the CDC ran out of masks for certain hospitals, and so they were recommending that nurses, physicians wear a bandana over their face. So this is something better than that. So there are a lot of hospitals, a lot of places that just don't have any masks at all. So these are not replacing any masks, once again. They are just in case you don't have anything. All right, so the last step is when you're wearing these with just the cotton, it totally works, but one last step, so you can do this after. This was not on the supply list, and this was after reading other patterns and looking into other ways that these were being done, that I thought that this might be a helpful way to make the mask secure more around the face. So what I added is a little wire. So whenever you're putting the mask on, you, instead of having like a little hole here, you can actually push it against your face so it kind of conforms a little bit more. So you, like I said, you can make all of these, and this is not something you have to do right away. This can be later after they're completed. So I'll just show you how to do that as well. So I went to Target and found these little pipe cleaners. You can also use twist ties like you have on, you know, a loaf of bread. So I have a twist tie here. You can just grab whatever color matches or whatever color you like. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this. You can actually just put it up against your mask here. And I only made mine to here, but you could actually do it all the way if you'd like. And you can just trim it off. I'm gonna leave mine about 1/2 inch away from the edges on each side, probably even more. All right. So this is a little bit more of an advanced step. So if you are a beginner, I would say just make these without this, but If you are a little bit more intermediate, this will not be too difficult for you. We are not going to be using pins to do this, and we're going to be using a different stitch called a zigzag stitch to secure this in place and also prevent the edges from stabbing the face. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to find the middle of the mask by pinching it here. And you can just add a pin just to show where that edge is. Sorry guys, I saw somebody had sent a request. I don't see any requests on here, but let's see. Oh, they're just questions, okay. All right, so this is the mask here. We're also gonna be running this video for the next 24 hours, so if you didn't get to join in live, you will get to see it. Okay. So I found the middle, and then I'm gonna just find the middle of the pipe cleaner, like that. All right, and then I'm just gonna line it up with the edge, but not over the edge. I'm gonna actually line it up with the stitch that I made. I'm gonna switch the machine to a zigzag stitch, which is the letter C. And I'm gonna put it on 5, which is the position of the needle. And I'm gonna be between a 2 and a 3 for this stitch as well. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna try to get you guys a little closer here. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold the pipe cleaner down with my finger, and then I'm going to put it under the presser foot and secure it. Then I'm going to rotate the needle back and forth, making sure that it's going over the pipe cleaner. So it's actually going like this over the pipe cleaner. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a back stitch to secure that, and that's also going to go over the edge where the pipe cleaner might be sharp. So I'm just going to go over a couple of times to prevent that from being, scratching the face. Okay. So I'm going to continue to go and take out this pin here. And then once again, just back stitch a couple of times over the edge. Okay. And so that has made a little wire that can then be bended and kind of conform to the face. All right. No super glue on the mask. And yes, you want to use a zigzag. So the zigzag stitch is going all the way over the metal. Even if the pipe cleaner kind of wears down a little bit, it's okay. This will just kind of help, like I said, this is something that will help conform to the face. You can also wash this. Like I said, it's probably not something that's gonna last forever, but it's better than nothing, and it's something that I think has helped. What can you use if you don't have a pipe cleaner? You can use a twist tie. The first one I made, I actually just took a twist tie off of a loaf of bread that I had, and I used that instead, so that actually works. You can order pipe cleaners, or if you, I definitely think it needs to be a very, very tiny wire, something that is not any thicker than that. Okay, so do we have any other questions? Let's see. Can you use muslin? Yes, you can use muslin. Wired ribbon works perfectly. That's a great idea. Florist wire, absolutely. Jewelry wire, I'm not sure if that would be too thick or not, but is there a pocket? No, there is not a pocket for this one. So when you stitch over the edge, you go over a bunch of times so you can't feel the wire. So it's nice and smooth. Like I said, this is kind of an addition to the actual design. The design itself doesn't even have the wire, and it's not necessary. It's just something that for comfort and just an added protection, I think that it helps. Type of fabric is cotton. Yes, if you need masks in New Jersey, we are happy to help. Please just email the New York Sewing Center at Gmail and we will add you to our list. Yep, anybody that needs these, please email the Sewing Center. We're gonna add, just send your contact information, a telephone number or an email of somebody that we can contact to distribute. And then, like I said before, Lyft has been very helpful to help do the pickups and drop-offs. All right, so if you have any questions, please feel free to DM me or email the Sewing Center. This is our finished mask, and it's nice and tight around the nose. So you guys stay safe. Be sure to keep your social distancing. If you are bored and looking for something else to do, make some masks. And if you need a FaceTime lesson or a virtual class, we are trying our best to get those up and running. So please let me know if you have any other questions. I'm also going to be posting patterns tonight on our story, and we're also going to be posting all the CDC information, links, everything that you guys have been asking about, and we have 2 different links for people that are in need of these. So make as many as you can, send them over to all of the hospitals, all of the nurses, everybody that's out there just really busting their, doing all this hard work. So good night, everybody.